Hello and welcome to another Reaconteur video, and in today's video I'll be going over every boss in Deepwoken. And very important, but I am currently live on Twitch doing the Gaming Gauntlet, which means 10 different games, 10 wins in a row, and if we lose we go back to the beginning. So come to my Twitch right now. I'm playing with 2 other people. This is important. Also make sure to subscribe. It's only about 20% of the people watching right now are actually subscribed. And my final announcement, thank you to the Deepwoken guide on YouTube for providing pretty much all of the background footage for this except for the Maestro Evangard boss fight. So check him out too. He's a great guy. Now let's get straight into it. First up is the classic Duke, the first boss most people will ever fight in the game, and at one point was the only necessary boss in the game. However, now you no longer are required to fight the Duke to uncap your magic stat, so he is no longer a necessity. However, you do need to defeat him for a bunch of other quests, so most people fight him anyway. Defeating him as a Gale Breath user, however, unlocks the opportunity for you to get the mantra Pillars of Arisia, which is a modified version and recreation of one of his moves, which is the Gale Stomp. As for his actual boss fight, it does have a quest associated with it, which you probably just already know, and it's kind of important to address because I guess it's there, but I won't be addressing it because it is both boring and all over YouTube, so no quest coverage here. So anyway, let's just get straight to the boss. For his moveset, he uses mainly Strong Left, which is one of his most popular, or well, most used mantras, but it's pretty easy to deal with, so just block or dodge it. Sorry, don't block it, parry it. Yeah, never block that, it will kill you. Next is Gale Trap, which you can actually just block that move. Most people parry it, but yeah, you can just block it, it doesn't really do much posture damage. Next is Pillars of Arisia, which as a move is pretty good. It's the slightly modified of the mantra version, or that is that. But anyway, this is kind of just really easy to deal with. If you see him raising his foot up, get ready to dodge as his foot comes down. It's a very long wind up until you can just kind of pretty easily avoid it if you just look at him, which you should be doing anyway because you're fighting him. Keep your eyes on your target. Big tip that I've told so many people and it's helped them, which is so insane how many people need to be told to look at the thing that they're fighting. And then there is his weird ultimate thing, which is a big ball of Gale that cuts you up. It can be spam parried or partially dodged, and if you dodge it, it won't kill you, but it does do a lot of damage, so I'd recommend just going for the parry. And then he also uses Legion Kata with his crit, and then Way of Neve M1s. Now, the reason why I point that out is because it's not only strange, but also it's just kind of like weird. So you kind of have to get used to parrying both Way of Neve and Legion Kata, so playing against players can actually make you slightly better at this boss fight because you'll be used to his regular M1 and crits. Pretty much for his first phase, which is the harder one of the two, you just need to M1 his shield and parry trade with him until his shield is gone. Afterwards, you can kind of just spam and wall combo him until he's dead, since without his shield he parries a whole lot less. He also does in his first phase where he has his counter where he backs up and sits around waiting for you to hit him, but just don't hit him. It really doesn't matter. That move is useless. It just wastes time. There's also one more thing you should probably be wary of, and it's his like little mud skipper clone guys. They're not really that threatening, but every once in a while they might be able to get you in a little infinite combo, and sometimes they can even set him up for combos on you, so you should really focus on staying away from them and not getting hit by them. Do not get hit by the mud skipper clone things. The slaves will kill you. Or well, they won't kill you, but they'll probably get you killed. Upon beating him anyway, you get a large chest full of all the goodies you could ever want. And about 8 Dukes should get you your Bell at power 20 or so, making it the 3rd best source for Bell progression, while being the lowest risk of the top 3. Since Primadon sends you to the depths and the Sign of Etheron will wipe you, those being number 2 and number 1 for Bell progression respectively, he is the lowest risk one, since dying to him doesn't really matter that much, and it also still just gives pretty good progression. Next up is the Ferryman, who has the important but exclusive drop of the Cerulean Knife. Funny to mention, but the Ferryman actually isn't entirely an enemy. I mean, in lore, you summon him and he just gives you stuff if you beat him in a fight, but he's not entirely evil. He's kinda chill, not really. I mean, look, he's racist. He's just racist. This has nothing to do with the boss fight, but he purposely rigs his bets because he hates surface dwellers. So yeah, the Ferryman is canonically racist. Regardless, his skill set is based around lightning, and lightning he does. He summons lightning clones which run at you, and they die pretty easily just like the mantra, but they are quite annoying. They can be really annoying because they kind of get you off of him, so in certain times when it would be better for you to land a hit, he'll do his clones, and then you kind of just lose out on potential damage on him. And then he'll also summon stuff like Purple Lightning from the sky, which comes down and strikes, dealing quite a bit of damage, and he vents like the Duke, which I forgot to mention it, but most humanoid bosses will usually vent, but specifically this guy will do it against anything that dazes him. So if you have a blunt crit or something that dazes and use it, then he will probably vent you. Anyway, Ferryman is actually one of the best boss fights in this entire game. His attacks are actually very Q reliant, unlike the Duke, You do need to pay attention for audio and visuals much more than any other boss to know what he's doing, such as when he teleports around the arena or uses his lightning strikes. So generally pay attention to the floor, listen for zaps and teleport noises, and focus on his position, because after you get too close he likes to teleport around the circle, and there's about 6 spots where he can teleport in a star-looking pattern. He also takes more damage based on consecutive hits, so daggers are actually really good against him, and so are just light weapons in general. So I'd actually recommend fighting him with a light weapon, just because the more hits you do against him, the more damage he takes based on the consecutive hits. In Phase 2, similarly to the Duke, however, he is actually much easier, as he loses his lightning clones, and it gives you way more attack opportunities because of that. In Phase 2, he also gets to move Grand Volley, and it's so easy to avoid, and it's got such a loud sound cue, you could never miss it. The noise it makes is deafening on max volume, so you actually just can't miss it. Anyway, it's a really easy to avoid attack, since you can actually just parry it, which, you know, for the move called Grand Volley, you wouldn't be expecting to, especially because the way you're supposed to avoid it is just running to your left or right out of its zone, but no, you can just parry it. Now, the Ferryman does have a unique mechanic of dropping loot dependent on the season you fight. Him in, if you talk to him after beating him. He drops 5 mid-tier chests regularly that can have just about anything in them, but his seasonal rewards are as follows. In spring, he gives you 1 knowledge every fight. In summer, he gives you an additional mid-tier chest, so it's just kind of mid, and in autumn, he also gives you the same mid-tier chest. So summer and autumn are the exact same thing for some reason. Both chests are the same, but guarantee amethyst pendant rings, like earrings for some reason. And in winter, he drops a Cerulean knife on his first time that you beat him, and then subsequent wins against him in winter will drop an Alita loot pool chest, so it's the same as Alita's chest, which is pretty good actually. I do like this. Next up is Primadon, the big monkey. On his island, dying will always send you to the depths, so you should probably just not die here, ideally. His loot contains 16 small chests with a chance of an additional gem chest that guarantees you a random deep gem. It could be anything. He is a pretty easy boss though. His main attacks are a stomp you can parry, a triple stomp you can parry, a kick you should dodge, but if you have the Hunter's Brace passive you can parry, the punch, which isn't really relevant since it only happens if you're just out of M1 range, which you shouldn't be, and the grab, which is a substitute for the punch and it does the same thing, but he throws you, opening up for more attacks like the rock throw, which I'll talk about real quick. But generally, if you see the punch or the grab coming, you should always dodge it, because I'm not really paying attention to more than his feet. Don't make any weird comments about that, but because of that, if I see him like swing his arms down at me when I'm a bit far away, I just dodge it, because it's much easier than worrying about whether I should parry or dodge it, because you can dodge both anyway. Anyway, his last move before Phase 2 is a jump where he jumps back, throwing a rock and opening up for more rock attacks from range while he enters your close range. Generally, you just want to try and run at him and dodge any rocks he throws and dodge his punch or grab, because he'll probably do them once you enter his mid-range. When you enter Phase 2, he beats his chest and just does the exact same things but faster. He's a pretty straightforward boss and he is quite easy. The only thing you need to be worried about is like his mantra resistance and his elemental resistance. There was at one point a time when you actually just couldn't damage him with legendary weapons because his mantra resistance and stuff would stack against the legendary weapon. So if you had a legendary, you just couldn't damage him like at all. You'd be doing like 2 damage per M1. So yeah, just don't use elemental stuff and you should be good. Next up is the Dread Serpent, commonly known as Kaido, and this boss is terrible. I hope it gets reworked. Anyway, it spawns randomly on bubbles in the Void Sea, and defeating it gives you Ardor, which is the main reason why anyone fights it in the first place. It can also be summoned with a Ardor manifestation thing, and it is called the Dread Serpent because fighting it instills a feeling of dread on the player. It has 3 attacks, only 3. The Ice Breath, which makes a platform you can use, but the best strat is generally just sitting behind the dragon in the water and spamming M1 until it's dead. It also has a claw and tail swipe, but if you're sitting behind it, then it usually won't hit you unless the tail swipe hitbox extends to you, at which point it can sometimes fling you into the water and get really buggy. Yeah, this boss is pretty bad. I really hope it's reworked or replaced. Good to note, but it does have 75% or so resistance to all Frost Draw based attacks, so don't use Frost Draw if you want to get Ardor ideally. With that being said though, DVM can counteract this, so you can do it normally if you have like a high PvE build, so just do what you want with that information. But yeah, ideally don't use Frost Draw unless you want to fight this thing with like 70,000 equivalent health. And just so you guys know, he's also terrible for bell progression, so don't bother. he's really only there to get Ardor, so you should only really be fighting him for Ardor and never again. Next up is the Chaser, the boss found within the first floor of Layer 2. Chaser is actually pretty easy since he's really just gatekeeping the real challenge being Layer 2 Floor 2, which Scion of Etheron is the end of that, which I'll talk about after this, but funnily enough, it's not even the hardest part because Layer 2 Floor 2 itself is just a really annoying puzzle. Anyway, for the Chaser's attacks, they're all unique as no Blood Oath or Attunement exists. Anyway, he shoots out blood tendrils, but he has two ways of doing this. Slower ones that come out in threes that can be very easily blocked since they don't do much, if any, posture damage. And his faster one is, you have to dodge it, you can't block it or parry it. But it is pretty easy to dodge though, since it makes the unblockable attack sound, meaning you can just dodge as soon as you hear that, and you're good most of the time. He also puts a flaming blood pillar below you that you can see and dodge after about a second or two. It's not really that hard to avoid his attacks, it's kind of an endurance-based fight. To fight him, you must break the various jars of blood around his arena. You destroy a few jars per cycle and then get a bit of time to attack him before he heals a bit, around 1600 health. After breaking them all, he gains the ability to stack up to 4 attacks at once, which is his Frenzy ability, which can be really annoying and hard to manage depending on which attacks he throws out. Then, once he's low enough, he begins to spam all of his attacks at once, at which point you should go under him and parry when he dies, spamming his ground slam. As for the loot, he has some pretty good stuff. His medium-large chest has a chance for various gems, legendary weapons, and it has the unique potential drop of the Flareblood Kama, since this is the only way you can get the Flareblood Kama, so if you want it, you have to fight him. He has also better bell progression than the Duke, requiring about 6 boss fights to get your bell. Now, the reason earlier why I said that Scion of Etheron was the second best, when technically this is because in order to fight the Scion of Etheron, you also have to fight the Duke. So doing like 3 or 4 full Layer 2 runs will usually get you Bell. So just keep that in mind if you want to get it the fastest way possible. Just run Layer 2 completely, like 3 or maybe 4 times. Now, second to last, we have the Scion of Etheron. After defeating Chaser, you can find him through all the puzzle stuff on floor 2 of Layer 2 after getting through everything. His attacks are quite easy to avoid, actually. His purple ball thing is parryable and semi-dodgeable because it's a multi-hit. And then his next attack is just throws 3 bones, which can't be dodged, but can be blocked or parried, and this is really important. You need to block or parry the bones because then they drop on the floor. And if you get the bones, you can put them into the altars located around the Colosseum to stun Etheron and hit him. Certain PvE builds used to, I don't know if they still can, but they could kill Etheron in 1 cycle of this bone stun thing. I don't know if it's still possible after the PvE nerfs, but it could be. Now, anyway, from there the rest of his attacks are pretty easy to dodge other than the big laser that you can parry and continue off of auto parry frames. Just listen for the dodge noise and wait for his bone growths and dodge them. Etheron is not that hard. After beating him, you just have to run to the light for Claris to pull you out and you're good. And you wipe if you don't reach the light, by the way, obviously. Etheron really isn't that hard. He was pretty big and intimidating at first, but once you learn his patterns, he's really, really easy. So just focus on learning his patterns and probably do it with some friends so that way you don't wipe on your first attempt trying to fight this boss. Because nobody wants to wipe on their first attempt fighting any boss. That sucks. That's why a lot of people are too afraid to do things like run Layer 2. Because they're afraid they're going to wipe. But how are you going to get better if you're so afraid to wipe? You're so lame. Just do the boss and bring some friends for the extra safety and actually do your part instead of hiding behind them. And our final boss is the Maestro Evangard Rest. He has the unique drops for every weapon type, dropping either Purple Cloud, Cerulean Thread, or Pale Briar, depending on if you're using medium, light, or heavy weapon types respectively. Upon your first time beating him, he will always drop one of these weapons. He also drops a medium chest with loot in it when you beat him, so it's pretty good. Now Maestro has a lot of attacks, like I mean a lot. I think he has the most attacks in the entire game. And very interesting to mention, but if you spit on him, he activates his Tempest Eye and just cleaves your head off. Like, you can't dodge it, parry it, or block it, he just kills you if you spit on him. Instantly. Which, just a little bit of lore stuff, I know this isn't a lore video, but I kind of want to bring it up. When in this mode, he is stated to be stronger than the Lord Regent. His end goal is to kill the Lord Regent, which is interesting because clearly the activation for it is to get angry, or if it's hyper-specific, to be spit on. Like, this just, it's so stupid, right? Because I left a comment on one of my lore videos where I said, why doesn't he just activate this and kill the Lord Regent? Someone was like, oh, well, it says it has specific activation in the comments. And it's like, oh my god, shut up, you're so annoying. Just annoying lore freak in the comments saying, it has a specific activation. Like, bro, I activate it by spitting on him. You're telling me he can't bring it out to fight the Lord Regent and kill him easily? It's stupid. Like, it just, like, why doesn't he just go get angry and kill the Lord Regent? This goober is wasting time. Anyway, this isn't a lore video, so about the actual boss. He incorporates both really fast and really delayed and slow attacks, making it kind of like an Elden Ring fight in the fact that you need to be able to read animations and adapt to his speed to fight him properly, and you need to be able to do this well. He also has a weird unique passive where if you use instant guard breaking moves or mantras, they will only not guard break, similarly to the Duke, but they won't even deal posture damage as he deflects them. So it's actually better to have a not instant guard break than an instant guard break against this boss. Now, this boss really can't be broken down for tips. You cannot learn to fight him by watching a video. In the same way that you can probably learn Etheron or maybe even Chaser or Duke and something by like watching a video, you cannot do that against this boss. You need to get combat experience against him because this boss doesn't rely on gimmicks or anything else, and there's no way to really cheese him. You just need to be good enough to beat him. So my best advice to you is go fight him. Just go fight him. This video is not going to help you fight him. You could probably use this video to fight any other boss here, not this one. You just need to be good enough to beat him, so start practicing. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Shout out to Cyberboy21, Goobka, and Drizzy Drake fan. I love you all. Have a great day. Come to the stream, please. It's going to be big. I'm probably going to be doing this for like a week straight, 90 hours. Or, you know, not, because I'm amazing at video games. Anyway, I love you all, and goodbye.